From an extremely low life expectancy to UFO sightings. Stay tuned to number 1 to find out the craziest history of Rome that you didn't know. Number 10. Low life expectancy. The ancient world had many surprising things, but one thing it technically didn't have was a long life expectancy. If you think about it, it's not hard to see why. Still, in ancient Rome, the life expectancy was really low, like 25 low. Granted, there is a catch. For you see, a lot of women passed away in childbirth, and thus the numbers took a hit in the averages. Given that we know that many famous Romans lived into their 30s or beyond, if you make it to about 30, you have a good chance at living a long life. But the opposite is also true. You might not have lived beyond infancy, let alone 20. Number 9. They invented shopping malls. It's not surprising at all that Rome had a lot of advances in their society. There's a reason that they reigned for so long. But what might surprise you was that ancient Rome was actually the birthplace of shopping malls. Sure, they didn't have all the massive signs and revolving doors and all that, but they truly had a marketplace that was very much like a shopping mall. It was called Trajan's Market, and it was even located within a building, albeit one that was open to the public from the outside so anyone could walk in. I'm sure you're looking at the building and noting, that doesn't look like an impressive mall. But don't let the pictures fool you, for the size of this mall is actually rather impressive. Based upon the basic sizes of stores, this mall could easily fit 150 of them. Here's another interesting fact for you. This place has been up for over 2,000 years. Yeah, this place has existed longer than pretty much every mall in the United States put together. And it's in great shape because the Romans used special techniques for making buildings with concrete. You almost can't help but to imagine what it must have been like to shop in the mall during its prime. And since this was built in the former capital of Rome, it was no doubt popular. Number 8. Chariots beat gladiators. When you think of ancient Rome as a culture, one of the things that will no doubt cross your mind are gladiator battles at the Colosseum. But before we talk more about their place in Roman history, take a moment to like this video and join the Zero to Hero community by clicking the subscribe button below. Indeed, gladiators were so legendary that they have permeated our culture and even become a legendary Russell Crowe film. But here's the thing, while there's no doubt that they were very popular, they weren't the most popular event in the Roman culture. Based on estimates of the Colosseum, it is believed that when a gladiator match was held, it would hold between about 50,000 and 87,000 people, which is very impressive, and much like the shopping mall from the last entry, the Colosseum is still standing today. But when it's compared to the Circus Maximus, it doesn't even come close. Despite the name, the Circus Maximus was not a circus. It actually was the name of the place where chariot racing was held. Yeah, there was more than one entertainment venue in Rome, it's just that the Colosseum is remembered more because of its brutality. If you're curious, there was also a non-physical entertainment spot you could go to called the Marcellus. This is where you would go if you wanted to watch a theater-type show. However, seating there could only fit about 20,000 people. Number 7. My Empire for a higher ranking. When you consult your history books or watch television about history, you are told that the Roman Empire was one of the most powerful empires in all of history. And that is 100% accurate. But if you think that the Roman Empire was the largest empire in history, that would be incorrect. For while the Romans did have a certain grip on the world, one that lasted about 1,500 years before its true fall, its size wasn't as impressive as certain other kingdoms and empires. In fact, if we're talking a scale of land and where they held power, technically, the Roman Empire isn't even in the top 10. Shocking, right? And you might be thinking of one or two certain kingdoms that may have beaten it, but others aren't so clear. For example, the biggest empire in terms of size was the British Empire, which had 13 million square miles of land and between 22 to 28% of the world's population under their flag. At the peak of the Roman Empire, they had, at best, 12%. It's still impressive, no doubt about that, but it's just not as good as some may have said it was. Number 6. The City of Mysteries. Rome itself is two things. One, it's an empire that lasted for 1,500 years. The second, though, is that it's a city, a grand city even, and one that has been around for a very long time. Yet because of all that time, it's found itself a bit shrouded in terms of the earth around it. Today, the ancient city of Rome finds itself about 30 feet below street level, and despite many people living on top of it and people excavating it in order to get the truth about what the city was fully like, it's going slowly. Very slowly even. Estimates right now is that only 10% of Rome has been fully excavated. That's honestly not a lot in context. But it's not just that this is a city they aren't trying to excavate, instead, people still live in Rome, and there's likely the issue of funds as well. But Rome isn't alone in being buried, for legendary cities such as Pompeii and Herculaneum are still mostly buried too, with only about 20 to 25% of their cities being uncovered. You have to wonder, what mysteries and ancient secrets still lie underneath the earth of Rome? Number 5. Cures from blood. If there's one thing that the ancient world definitely got wrong, it was medical practices. Sure, there were some that were viable, and even are used to this day to a certain extent, but then there are ones that are just plain nuts. And reading about you makes you wonder how anyone in this culture survived. The ancient Romans were not exempt from this, and not surprisingly, one of their most insane cures came from gladiators. Why is this not surprising? Well, not unlike their brothers, the Greeks, they held up their athletes in high regards. So much so that it was believed that their very bodies had curative powers. For the Romans, they believed that the blood of a gladiator could actually cure people of epilepsy. If not already obvious, this cure didn't work. But in ancient Rome, they really didn't care, for the belief was strong. Sometimes when a gladiator was killed in action, his blood was drained and sold minutes later. But wait, it gets worse. Eventually, Rome banned gladiator fights, which would make you think that people would stop drinking blood. They didn't. Instead, they got blood from wherever they could, including from criminals who were killed for their crimes. Thankfully, people realized eventually that blood is not a cure for epilepsy, but it took a long while to get to that realization. Number 4. Movies versus reality. Fact. Movies and TV shows exaggerate things in regards to history, and when it comes to Roman culture, that usually applies to how gladiator fights were done and how slaves were treated in the culture. Many shows and movies display Roman warships being rowed by slaves so that soldiers could focus on the fighting. In these movies, they're usually chained to their seats and forced to row under the penalty of whipping. The truth? This didn't happen. The people who rowed were actually regular civilians. Why? Well, the Roman culture believed that anyone who was a legitimate citizen to Rome had a duty to fight, no matter what your class was. But there was a twist. If you did fight for your country and you lived, you'd get certain privileges, including political power. Naturally, they wouldn't give this to slaves, and thus they were never used to row the boats. But that didn't mean that Rome didn't use slaves in their armies. It was rare, but it did happen. When they did, though, they would be made citizens, so technically, no slaves ever served in the Roman army in any fashion. Number 3. Cleopatras Inspiration. When you think about the history of Rome, a key section of history had the empire interacting with Egypt, which was another major empire at the time. This led to two of the most powerful men in Rome falling in love with one of the most powerful and arguably most beautiful women in the world, Cleopatra. Famously, she wooed both Julius Caesar and Mark Antony in various ways, and assured their strength and political power was hers when she needed it. And she did need it, as she fought wars with Rome on her side and won. Anyway, when it came to her relationship with Caesar, he even flaunted her in front of the crowds, despite the fact that she was his mistress, a big sin in ancient Roman culture. But Caesar didn't care, at all. At first, the people were appalled by Cleopatra's presence in their land. But slowly they started to change their minds, and many Roman women even started to mimic their styles and appearance to look more like Cleopatra. Not surprising given her famed beauty. She lived among the people for 2 years, and then fled the empire after Julius Caesar was assassinated. And you can learn more about Julius Caesar in our related video. Number 2. Spiders and bandages. I've noted previously how Romans had some very backwards thinking when it came to medicine, but in truth, they were also at the head of creating a new viable medicine, one of which was bandages. Yeah, something that we take for granted now was not well known back in the ancient times of Rome. Yet Roman medics realized that by using bandages and tying them up with certain things, it could help treat wounds. A book was written called Military Medicine from Ancient Times, and it revealed that not only did medics in the Roman military use bandages, but they used things like honey, vinegar, and even cobwebs in order to seal them. Why is this significant? Well, fast forward to the modern day, and you'll see that one of the highest things in demand today is spider silk. Why? Because it has one of the highest tensile strengths in the world, which can make bandages and various other materials much stronger. So while we're trying to make use of this now, the Romans were doing it long before the age of modern medicine. Number 1. Romans saw UFOs. When you hear the word UFO, your mind may go to things like Roswell, Area 51, the X-Files, and stuff like that. It probably wouldn't, however, go to ancient Rome. But you might be surprised to learn that there are actually 2 confirmed sightings of UFOs in Roman times, and it's depicted both in text and in live witness statements. The first came in 218 BC, where someone wrote that gleaming ships had appeared above Rome and dashed across the sky. Then in 150 AD, a person recounted the following. A beast like a piece of pottery about 100 feet in size, multicolored on top, and shooting out firing rays landed in a dust cloud. So the question now is, what did they see? Given that this was ancient times, seeing anything odd in the sky would easily get the attention of the people. Plus, this wasn't the modern alien craze we all live in now, so you have to wonder what people would gain from lying about them. Did ancient Rome have encounters with aliens? The truth is out there. What did you think about the crazy history of Rome? Let us know in the comments below, and take care.